What up, what up? Welcome to today's episode of the TRG podcast. I have a very special guest in the building, Ashley Riley, Queen of Puma, actual title, Senior Marketing Manager of Influencer and PR. I'm so happy you could jump on today to talk about all things Mike Vrabel, Diana Rossini, and I guess a little bit about your job as well.
Sounds great. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
100%, 100%. We were talking before we hopped on. Obviously, we've known each other for a long time now. I you've been at Puma for what feels like forever, and it's such a cool company. You're our first brand direct representative to be on the
Oh,
podcast, so we're super excited and appreciative of you taking the time. So, first question is just tell us a little bit about how you got into digital marketing and the social media space.
yeah. I feel like my story's kind of crazy because I was definitely one of those people that thought social media wasn't a job, way back in the day. I actually went to school for fashion design because I knew I wanted to be in the sneaker world. But my school, I couldn't design sneakers. I was just sewing and I didn't think that's what I wanted to do. So I went and got my master's degree right away in marketing. And instead of writing a 40-page capstone paper, I got the opportunity to do an internship at Puma. It was retail marketing at the time, which I thought was a good fit because I had spent 10 years working in retail. Um, and I was lucky enough to get it. I ended up leaving after my internship was done for like 3 or 4 months. I got a full-time job at a different corporate fashion brand, and Puma had called me with an opportunity. It was a temporal, but I knew I wanted to go back. So I quit the full-time job that I got to go to the temporal. And it's a version of what I do today. So after about a year, they signed me on full-time. And now altogether, I've been there for over 9 years.
Yeah, which feels like forever in the brand world. So, and very interesting. Love the background. You mentioned you've been at Puma for 9 years now. What's kept you energized and growing in that role? Because this is an industry where you see so often people are at a company 18 months and, climbing that ladder. What's kept you energized at Puma?
Yeah, I think mostly it is because I'm doing what I love to do. I said that I always wanted to work in sneakers. That's like one of my many things that I'm passionate about. You hinted at it during the intro. I also love sports. I'm a huge music fan, and I've always just been kind of creative. So I feel like I get to take all of those things and combine them into the output of our influencer and marketing strategies. We work with tons of musicians. Obviously, Puma starts as a sports brand. And yeah, I kind of just feel like my love for everything is what I get to do every day. And getting to work with so many different creators that are so excited to work for the brand, it's just kind of like people's passions rubbing off of each other and just kind of making everything worth it at the end of the day.
100%, and we're absolutely going to talk about For the Soul before we get you out of here because I feel like that's
Oh,
the perfect combination of everything you mentioned with sports, music, fashion,
exactly.
entertainment, and so that's
My little
awesome.
passion
You
project.
mentioned it started. You mentioned this started as a temp role, and now you've been
Mhm.
there for 9 years. I'm curious, how has your day to day changed from when you first started to what it is now? In terms of you mentioned the passion and the belief in the company and the work that you do, but how is your day to day? When we caught up a few months ago, you mentioned that you were running the Instagram account now, and so you're sort of just doing a little bit of everything. How has your experience and your time there just changed your work with the company?
Yeah, it's definitely evolved a lot over time. I think one thing that is the red thread is basically content and relationships. But when I first started as a temp, I was doing paid media and influencer. So the paid media stuff was basically like the ads that you see on Instagram and now TikTok, etc. We would do sponsored editorial placements with brands like Complex and High Snob and things like that. And then the influencer work, which I've done in house, I've done with agencies, so that's kind of changed over time. And then I think it just evolves with what the brand's priorities are. So as the communications team kind of like developed, I was more focused on influencer. And then when the brand decided that regional social channels were important, they let me lead that for the first 2 years, as I was kind of the content engine with managing the influencer program already. And now I kind of shifted out of that, of the social channel. We still work very closely because we have a lot of content that they get to use, but now also PR because it's kind of key in the communications department. We're reaching out to different editors and kind of tastemakers alike to speak on behalf of the brand, generate content. So that's kind of where we feel it all sits together right now. So yeah.
Awesome. There's so many different teams at Puma. You mentioned the comms team, you mentioned paid ads, you mentioned influencer, and obviously it's a massive company. When someone new joins the team and you're trying to sort of teach them the ropes in terms of being able to, Puma's one of those big enough companies where a word like synergy and those get thrown around all the time. Let's take it offline. How do you use your experience to help show them the best ways to communicate and to actually drive results within the different teams to all try and achieve the collective goal of improving Puma's standing in the marketplace?
I feel like one of the biggest skills to have is knowing everybody around and the different teams and who to go to for something specific. I think collectively we're all here to make the brand a better brand. But there are people that focused on selling product. There are people that focused on driving awareness and brand heat. And there's different goals for those things. And therefore different tactics. So I think if I were to help somebody new, it's kind of funny because every time there's a new person and they set up the meetings with all the different people, it's like, oh, here we go again. But it is kind of important to the process of learning how to work with different people to get the outcome that you want for what you're working on. So I think even coming into the new role of newly working on PR, it's like I have to learn that whole process myself, and who do I go to for what, and where do I even start if I want to write a press release. It is kind of just learning your way around the ropes and learning how other people work and kind of figuring out the best way to get the job done the way you want.
Yeah, and we had talked before we started recording about your travel schedule coming up. You're going to Puerto Rico and Miami and Vegas, and so I'm sure even in those different markets, knowing the people not only on those teams, but being able to go in and have those relationships. We saw each other at the F1 Puma event last year. I'm sure those are different people that you're running events with than something in F1 Miami, and so knowing all those different relationships, it seems, especially at a company like Puma that is so big and can have so many different elements, that actually just knowing their names and knowing what they do and how you guys can work together seems like a super underrated skill.
Oh yeah, internally and externally. There's always somebody in the group chat asking if we know a vendor or somebody that can help us with X, Y, and Z out in this city. So definitely.
Yeah, and at the F1 event last year in Vegas, you guys had Paris Hilton as the DJ. So you guys just know everyone. Like, you and Paris are hanging out, you and LaMelo are hanging out. You've got all the friendships in all the different areas. So cool. So one thing that I was really excited to chat with you about when I knew you were going to hop on is, you mentioned it before with the PR and the influencer. You are on so many different projects, and it feels like all of these different projects are being focused on different platforms. And so now with the emergence of TikTok, which we'd already talked a little bit about, it feels like every platform is now trying to sort of be everything. They all have the shopping links, they all have the short form, they all have the long form. So when you guys internally are trying to figure out who makes the most sense to work with, the natural progression of that question is, where is the best place to work with them? And obviously the goal would be you want to work with everyone, everywhere, all the time, but you're already wearing 97 hats. I can't imagine you can wear 97 hats all the time doing everything. So for you, and then speak to yourself first, and then if you want to touch on the company, would love to hear that as well. How do you best decide where to allocate your time, energy, and resources?
Did you see that? This just fell from the
That
sky.
was
Leave that in.
no, that's absolutely getting clipped up right there.
Oh my God.
Wow, that
Um,
is. I did not realize that podcasting was a high wire act.
that was
You've made
funny.
it you've made it a contact sport. So yeah, take wherever that question in terms of like just again, you've got all these different platforms. How do you guys figure out, and how do you, when thinking about it, figure out here are the platforms we're really going to prioritize and maybe test on or try and move forward with?
Yeah, I touched on it a little bit earlier. It depends on what the goals are for the program. I think when it comes to like the shopping and the conversion, that's where the affiliate marketing comes in, and they're doing the short form videos, maybe YouTube with like the links that tie directly back, and then the creators kind of get their commissions for it, which I think is great, and I think will probably grow a lot now that everybody's dealing with influencers. And I think as we progress with tech and everything, I think that's going to continue to grow. For me personally, it's more about the brand love and the awareness. So we're really looking for high impact on engagement and reach. So I think TikTok has been really well in that regard for us, but I think it just comes down to the creator and the authenticity that they bring to the brand. So right now we're working on this project where we want to tap into local communities. Like we have New York and LA covered, but what about the other up and coming cities? Like Atlanta is really hot right now, I think, across the board for all the brands in our category. So it's like finding those people that you can build long-term connections with, that wear the brand regularly, and their followers kind of know and trust that, like, oh, if her brand is rocking with them for so long, we're going to trust them, and we kind of like build a relationship and go from there. So yeah, I think it starts with what you want to achieve, and then finding the right people that actually kind of care and make sense.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I know whenever you and I have talked about potential work opportunities, that idea of authenticity really comes up all the time. And you hear that from brands in terms of we want authenticity, and then the second they get someone with a big enough following in front of them, they're like, authenticity doesn't really matter. Let's work with the biggest creator. But another area that I really wanted to chat about, and I think Puma does an incredible job of, and you're a massive testament to that, is the idea of building community.
Mm-hmm.
And so you talk about authenticity. I think that anyone that looks at the Puma page or the partnerships you guys execute, you do feel like the vast majority of the time there is that connection to the brand. And so that may be one of them. I'm curious, are there other maybe stated practices or just sort of not discussed but thoughts within the company in terms of when you're trying to build that community versus just building an audience? How do you sort of navigate the idea of we want to reach as many people as possible in order to sell our products, but we also want to make sure we're reaching the right people and having them stay within our family? How do you sort of, compare and contrast those two ideas and try and make sure that whenever you're in your job as PR and influencer, you're reaching the audience, but you're also trying to really make sure you're building that community?
Yeah, I think, not to use the word again, but when it comes to being authentic to who we're trying to reach is the key thing. I recently got put into a scenario where we did get an opportunity to work with somebody, crazy reach, but it wasn't the exact consumer that we were looking to gain relevance with, right? So maybe that post would go crazy, but would it tap into who we think is going to drive the needle? Not quite sure. So what I think has helped us a lot is the direct connections with them. So I talked about using agency versus being direct with the creators, etc. And you can do this either way, but just having an open dialogue with them to not just throw a brief in front of their face and make sure that they say X, Y, and Z on behalf of the brand, but what do you think about this product and the marketing story behind it? How does it resonate to you? What ideas do you have? And then what they are able to create kind of could be something that we didn't even think about and then comes off super relevant to them and their audience, and then they believe it. And then that, I think, builds community because they're all trusting somebody that they've followed for years rather than a big global corporation that's telling them what to buy.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if we'll keep this in, maybe we won't, but I still tell this story to people all the time. We did a partnership together. It was an unboxing video maybe a year or two ago, and I thought the creator made a ton of sense on paper. We moved forward with the partnership, and in the unboxing, they called the brand Puma. And when I said, why did you send that name? They said, no, I said Puma. And I'm like, no, you didn't. You said Puma. And so I think that, and again, testament to you and the work that you do. I think that your ability to really identify those partnerships and build that sense of camaraderie with the creators, where it's not always necessarily that you're booking every creator every single time on a long-term partnership, but the ones that you're identifying, you see something intrinsically in them that they understand the brand, they understand the voice of the brand, what it's trying to convey. And I remember when you and I have talked, yes, it's a fashion brand in the sense of you want to look cool when you're wearing the apparel. And so I always find it so interesting to see all the different elements of, it's not just the personality, it's not just do you look cool in the picture, it's who are you as a person, and are you someone that we're going to want to work with, going to want to follow the directions, going to be professional about it, and at the end of the day also do a good job on the partnership.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think if you're being picked, it's not just to do a fit check, it's because of who you are. So that's what we want to come through within the content.
Amazing. So last one for you here before we're going to get into some rapid fire. This is something that you and I have joked about since we probably met 4 or 5 years ago. I could not imagine your inbox or being a part of it, because I imagine a lot of the inbox has something along the lines of, my client loves Puma. And then the next question is, well, can you send me content where they say they're loving Puma? And it's like, well, if you paid them, they would say they love Puma. It's a brand that has a lot of fans in a lot of different areas. I imagine you're constantly getting bombarded with, can our client work with them? Have you thought about this idea? How do you balance people that, if not want free apparel, look at Puma and say, that's a brand that I want to work with because it's well known and it looks cool, versus sort of everything we've talked about here, if you're not meeting that creator? And maybe that's the answer. Maybe it's, I sit down with them, I get a real sense of who they are as a person. Let's say that that idea is off the table and you don't have the ability to directly communicate with the creator. How do you balance, this looks cool and it's going to look cool on my page, versus someone that has a genuine connection with the brand and will do more than just look cool in that fit check?
Well, I think to the first part of your question, when they're just like inbound inquiries, I think you can tell when they are really genuinely interested in your brand. They'll send the links, they'll describe certain activations that you did or product that you came out with that they're super interested in. They'll say, hey, I'd love to style some of your pieces. And then I would say if their content looks great, whether or not there's a sponsored opportunity, I love sending creators like that content. And then you kind of see what comes out of it. And if they are capturing content with it, you always invite them to the next event or send to the agency to keep in mind for the upcoming programs. So I think just understanding that they're there, and I think also the consistency with it, because sometimes there is 100 requests at once and we're working on 85 different things. So I read all of them no matter what. I'll get to them eventually, I swear. So I think being consistent too and showcasing that, again, that they're genuinely interested, it goes a long way.
What are the most amount of emails you've had in your inbox, unanswered emails in your inbox at one time?
Oh, I don't know if this is a lot because again, I literally read all of them, but probably like 400 to 500.
Okay, amazing. You're way
I
better than me.
like my old boss has like thousands, but I know that they'll go back like years. Like I do read all of mine. I set aside my Friday afternoons to do all the product orders.
What an awesome Friday afternoon hobby for you to read work emails.
Yeah.
You've got an awesome social life. That's gotta be great. Okay, amazing. I want to finish up here. Thank you again so much for the time. I do want to do a little bit of rapid fire.
Okay.
Rapid fire meaning rapid, so no right answer, just first thing that comes to mind. We already mentioned it. You are a massive Boston sports fan. Favorite Boston athlete of your lifetime?
Jason Veritek.
Great choice. Most underrated Boston restaurant.
I'll say Mita in East Boston because nobody goes there.
Love it.
It's
Favorite
beautiful.
piece of favorite piece of Puma merch that you own.
Um, oh, my Rocky denim, ASAP Rocky denim.
Nice. What job would you have if you weren't in the social media world?
I'd be a DJ.
You and Paris Hilton cutting it up. Favorite Puma collab they've done in your time there.
Um, Probably the Rocky stuff
Nice. You're also a big music fan. We're gonna get to that here at the end. Favorite album you've listened to of 2026?
of this year.
Hmm.
Chief Keef.
I remember the first time.
Kidding.
I remember the first time we talked and you told me your music taste. I'm like, she is so cool. Last but not least, I saw on your Instagram page you recently did a High Rocks event. Congratulations, that is
Mm.
awesome. What's your favorite High Rocks exercise?
I hated the wall balls, and the other one that I did was the lunges, so I'll go with that. But I'm doing doubles in October, so I'll have to do everything.
Oh my God, you're an absolute animal. Ashley, you're the best. Before we get you out of here, we had mentioned it. Can you tell everyone a little bit about For the Soul and how long you've been working on it? And I think it's just such a cool side hobby piece of the business where you actually get to learn about people outside of their day job. So yeah, we'd just love for you to tell everyone a little bit about that.
Well, it's something that I need to pick back up again, but it's my personal blog. I am obsessed with hip hop, so I would just write about my findings of like the latest music that was coming out or just like whatever was going on in the industry. But I think it's always fun to have an opinion on it because I think from my Chief Keef answer, you can probably tell that I have different opinions than a lot of people on it, and I don't know why. I just always grew up listening to hip hop. But bringing in like sport and fashion and all of it, I used to do like sneaker reviews and talk about what was happening in like big sporting moments. I wrote in it 5 days a week for like 3 or 4 years. I took a little bit of a break when my workload day to day got really, really hectic, but it is a passion and I hope to bring it back someday.
100%. And it's at For the Soul, Soule,
Oh,
correct?
yes. Yeah, because it's like For the Soul was actually the name of my fashion design collection in college. So it's like the soul in your body and the soul in your shoe.
Amazing. Well, everyone go follow at For the Soul on, I know it's on Instagram. If it's anywhere else, check it out. Check it out there. It's awesome. It's always one of my favorite follows, especially when you were ripping it 5 days a week. I would always go on and see something all the time. And yeah, we'll have to have you back on for a deep dive of the state of hip hop in 2026 because
Love that.
a lot of interesting stuff happening in the game right now.
Oh, yeah.
Ashley, you're the absolute best. If there's anywhere else, follow Ashley on LinkedIn, Instagram, wherever. She's the best. Her work at Puma is incredible. Ashley, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me again.
Awesome. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye bye. Can you just